Deviates. I'm here with Charles Bright, Marcus James Dixon, Matt Noble, and Zach Laws, and we're here to talk about episode 5 of season 7 of Game of Thrones, Eastwatch. It was another amazing episode. We've got lots to talk about, but I'm going to go to each of you now. I'll go to Charles first. I'd like to know, what was your instant reaction from the episode? What was the one thing that you really, really loved about it?
Well, there are a lot of things I loved about it, but my first thoughts after the episode were, the first thing I thought was Sam's going to have some major library finds, and my second thought was it was actually when right after the execution scene with the dragon burns the two people. I just really thought to myself, is it wrong that I'm really hungry for barbecue right now? But I mean, other than that, you are really seeing this whole thing, really start to come to a head. It's like, okay, and everyone is on even ground now. Cersei is consolidating everything she has, and so is Daenerys, and we're just waiting to see how all of this is going to collide, which just makes which made this episode fun, and is setting up for the next couple of episodes to be insanely wonderful.
Excellent. Marcus, what about you?
Winter is here. The White Walkers are marching with their tiki torches. I think Westeros needs some global warming up in here because it's just too cold. And I don't know, this season is absolutely fantastic. We're getting reunion after reunion after reunion, and then people leaving each other and coming back. And it really is, this is a show 7 years in the making, and it feels like we've earned all of these reunions, and all of them are just so fantastic. And I could just go on and on and on, but I'm bored hearing myself talk.
Zach?
That never happens to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's good that we had a little bit of time to breathe this episode after the crazy shit that happened last week and the crazy shit that I'm sure we're about to see coming up this week. I mean, it was one of those classic Game of Thrones moments when the episode ended right before something really fantastic is going to happen with them having to confront these White Walkers. As you said, I mean, they're tying a lot of loose threads together. Everybody's, the gang's getting back together as it was. Somebody from season 1 is finally coming back. I guess he was in season 1. I can't tell some of these people apart sometimes.
You mean Gendry?
Yes, yeah. It took me a minute to remember who he was, but then oh, okay, yeah. Well, another cog in the puzzle here. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of surreal to think that with this one gone, we've only got 2 episodes left this season, and then 6 left after that. So
that's terrifying. That's really terrifying. Matt?
Yeah, well, there's so many things that happen. Jamie, unsurprisingly survived last week's cliffhanger. And great news, he's going to be a dad. What a great week for Jamie, surviving the battle. He's going to be a father. And he's even, Cerseis even says she'll, let everyone know he's the father. She's very proud of their relationship. So, that's quite nice. So everyone in Westeros is going to need to start to think about baby shower gifts.
Just make sure they have make sure the onesie has room for 2 heads.
Yeah.
And I think, and we've got next week the sort of foundation is laid for To Catch a White Walker, where they're going to try to catch a White Walker and bring it to King's Landing.
I'm sorry, you just made it sound like the White Walker is going to come around and then Chris Hansen's going to pop out. The White Walker has a 6-pack of Mike's Hard Lemonade or something.
With how fast the story is progressing, are we going to see Cersei give birth next week? I mean, it feels like every episode is basically 9 months.
I wanted to ask about that because it was last season, I think it was. I read this on the internet.
As you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we had that flashback to Cersei's childhood, and the fortune teller basically prophesized what was going to happen in her life about her giving birth to 3 children who would all die before her. Could this pregnancy, what this person on the internet was positing was that could this pregnancy mean that the end is near for Cersei? Is she going to give birth to another child?
Could she die in childbirth?
Right. Well, it's like her mother did with Tyrion. Right. And I think there's something in the book as well. A friend told me about how part of the prophecy that was not put forth in this episode was that she would get killed. I'm going to mangle this, so all the Game of Thrones fans out there are just going to have at me with this. But that she could be killed by a younger member of her family, i.e. a Jaime or even Tyrion.
Wow. So much to unpack with that.
Yeah.
But there you go. Talking about highlights, I really love how the two sides now, apart from the White Walkers and the Night King, the two sides on below the wall are women, very strong, kind of crazy women. And you don't see that very often on TV series in pop culture. It's cool. I think it's really cool. And I'm loving how Daenerys is just getting more and more badass. In fact, we had an article on Gold Derby about whether she's even a villain now. Would we go that far? I mean, she is going a little crazy, but I think she's just so committed to the cause to just kind of get on that damn throne and get rid of Cersei and kind of bring all the kingdoms together. So I don't think
she's a villain. I think she gave everyone a chance to survive and bend the knee. This is like bend the knee. You should take a drink every time somebody says bend the knee on Game of Thrones because you would be wasted. But I mean, she's not Cersei. I mean, she's not just murdering people. She didn't take the dragons to King's Landing like Jon Snow told her, not to do. I wouldn't quite say villain. It's kind of a strong word.
Yeah,
she's a leader.
Yeah,
you have to make these tough choices.
Tyrion. He was like, look, when the Mad King was burning innocent people and I was bringing them to him, I was like, I guess it's not me burning them, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
I love that Barrett scene when Peter Dinklage is like, what did the note say? And he's like, it's a private note to the king. And he's like, so what did it say? It was really funny.
It was pretty disconcerting to watch her burn these 2 people in front of everybody. And I mean, I loved the reaction of everyone after that. It's like, okay, you don't need to tell me twice. Like, I get it. Like, I'm not that loyal to Cersei.
I would follow Trump if it meant, surviving. That's the power of fire.
You disappoint me, Marcus.
So Charlie is more like a Dickon who Charlie the Dickon who would burn.
Yeah, it's an interesting name. I don't know. Yep, Tarly, right? So that's the Tarly. The Tarlys are wiped. They're wiped out. It's pretty sad.
Sam's still in the mix.
Thankfully, and they didn't tell him about what had happened up north. So that's I guess that's to come.
He would have been stoked. They were dicks to him.
Oh, true. That's true.
We won't tell him what happened to his dad and brother. I'm like, I don't think he's gonna mind.
Kick up his heels. The other thing I really loved was that moment between the dragon and Jon. It just obviously reinforces what we all know now about Jon's lineage. And there was also a little kind of off-the-cuff remark made to Sam about Rhaegar Targaryen and the annulment in Dawn and having maybe married someone else. We assume Lyanna Stark. There's a whole thing there that I'm trying to piece together in my very simple brain. Who would like to talk about that Targaryen side of the story?
I think you said it. I think that's all there is to say.
Okay, moving on.
I think it's a great little moment, but until we get more, I don't know. Okay, Gilly knows, Brandon Stark knows. Those are the only 2, right?
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing is that we've got it does seem like Daenerys and Jon are becoming more and more fond of each other. And a lot of respect growing, and there's some sort of thoughts maybe there'll be maybe is this going to move into a romantic thing or an alliance thing or a friendship thing? We don't really know where it's heading. The red flag for me that it might be getting romantic is that Jorah rocked up this week. And it seems like he's always sort of rocking up the third wheeling Daenerys. So I was a bit concerned about that. But it will be interesting to see how that plays out, as that information may or may not spread to how that might influence their relationship moving forward. As friends, as a couple, as an alliance. Yeah.
Well, you got to.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Matt, because when the scene when Daenerys and Jorah are reunited is a really beautiful scene, but I was thankful for it because I for some reason I just don't want a romance between Daenerys and Jon Snow.
For some reason,
and so I don't know why. I just don't want it. But I loved when they're embracing, and then on the very far left of your screen, you can see Jon Snow. I'm just like, oh, poor Jon Snow, always a third wheel.
He's always got such bad luck with the ladies. I mean, if he has a romantic relationship with Daenerys, and it turns out anyway that it did with what's the Wildling girl's name? Rose Leslie. I can never remember. Yes. Then Daenerys better watch out.
Yeah, that's true. I also was wondering, what can we talk about? What is Littlefinger up to towards the end of the episode with Arya? Like, what's going on there?
He's gonna make her look bad. I think that note was completely fake. Whatever was on that note, he wrote it. Sansa didn't write it. And he put it under the bed knowing she would find it, and she's going to do something with that note, and then she's going to look completely foolish and maybe be banished. I don't know. Something. He's up to something to make Arya, look really bad in front of her sister.
From what I read, because I is that it was a letter written from Sansa under duress from Cerseis following the death of King Robert, asking her family to swear to King Joffrey.
Okay.
So I wonder if he's trying to cause division between Sansa and Arya.
Mm-hmm.
That he can wedge his way in there, that relation. Because we saw them starting to clash, and I wonder if our Littlefinger's going to sort of massage this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like the Steve Bannon of
Yeah.
he's always scheming. He's always got some kind of trick up his sleeve to sow doubt in the country.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I was also wanting to talk about the performances on the show. I was really impressed with Peter Dinklage in the aftermath of the battle. That was really beautiful. And as usual, I think Emilia Clarke is really killing it this season, and no pun intended. And I just think when you think about Emmys next season, I know we're far, far away from that, given that we're still in this Emmy season. I think this Game of Thrones season is going to do very, very well. There's just really not been a misstep, has there? It's been very, very consistently brilliant season of a show, and everyone's really hitting it out of the park.
This is definitely Peter Dinklage's episode next year. And not just the scene you mentioned, but the scene where he's trying to convince Daenerys not to kill those guys. And when he goes and meets with Jaime for the first time in 3 seasons, he was very good.
That scene was beautiful, and it kind of recalls the episode that he won for in the first season, where he's talking about, his size and his stature, not having been, not planning to have been born the way that he's born, and the way that his family has always looked down at him, no pun intended, for that reason. It's a really beautiful scene, and he does it just perfectly.
Yeah. Anyone else? Just crickets. That's okay. That's
Can
fine.
we talk about the final scene where all of the guys go into, they go through the wall and go toward they're going to get a White Walker or something to bring back. Do you think they're going to kill off some people, right? Who from that group do you think is going to die? I think Davos Seaworth is a goner. This was a great kind of goodbye episode for him. Everything, his purpose is set. There's nothing else that this guy can do on the show. He's dead.
He's done.
Oh, I love him so much. I hope that.
Sort of makes sense in that it's like he's the guy's like, oh, I'm not good at I'll just stay back at the boats. You guys, I'm not like,
Yeah.
you know, that's where the bad thing's gonna happen. Like, so yeah, I could see that happening. I just it's a show they couldn't get is it Maester Clyburn or whatever to go with them from Cerseis team. He could like help them set a giant like trap for use his giant slingshot skills giant crossbow skills to build some giant Wile E. Coyote style trap for the White Walkers.
Yeah.
And ends up slamming himself into a wall.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect. But yeah, I love that ending. It also reminds me that I really loved when Bronn was you know, having the visions of the Night King and the ravens are going over. I thought that was a very effective scene. So anytime they go north of the wall, I get really kind of excited and interested.
Oh yeah,
I think it's wonderful. I like it how the show is now kind of stepping up into that side of Westeros for an episode or two before we then focus on, I guess, the big battle, I suppose, in King's Landing. I haven't read the books, so any of the people watching this, please don't attack me. And then I guess the final battle will be between north of the wall and everybody south of the wall. So, you know, you're right. We only have 8 episodes to go. There's not a lot, really, and we have to cherish every single moment. Final thoughts before we say goodbye.
Why doesn't someone like Cersei's in a pretty tough spot? Why doesn't she try to get an alliance going with the Night King? Like,
yeah, matchmaking heaven.
No one's wanting to team up with him.
Maybe she did, and her baby is actually the Night King's baby. It's going to come out as like an icicle.
Whoa!
Wow,
Jamie will be fuming.
God, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, that's got to sting. Okay, well, thanks all for your time, and we'll come back next week for the penultimate episode of this very exciting season of Game of Thrones.
It hurts so much.
It really does.